Welcome to Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. Each week, the NI Bullpen will be covering the world of comics, talking to creators, deep diving into some fantastic stories, and much more. Now let's hand it over to the team and turn a page.
Welcome to a special edition of Turn a Page, the official comic book club for Nerd Initiative. My name is Ken M. You know me as the host of the ODPH podcast. I'm also the editor-in-chief. To my left, you're right at home. He is one of our featured editors at the Comics Bullpen. He also does the wrestling show, Wrestling Night Live, as the host. But this is some specialty that he is very, very well aware of, because when it comes to Comixology Originals, Rich is always on top of it. So please give a warm welcome to the one and only Rich.
That is right. I have had the pleasure of reviewing this book before doing this interview. I've also, it mixes everything I love. I love history. I love a little bit of pseudo history. And I love action. So I can't wait to talk more about this book.
Absolutely, because this book that is out right now in Comixology Originals is one you don't want to miss, because when ancient history collides with modern warfare, it is going to be a mind-blowing experience that you have to go read for yourself. And coming from an author that has really made a staple about giving you some game-changing twists in his content, this is right up our alleys, and we think it's going to be right up yours, because you know his work from such shows as Emerald City and Siberia, and also Eden. And now he is coming back to Comixology Originals with a must-read book called Outer Lands. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Matt Arnold. Matt, what is going on?
Hey guys, wow, that's a pretty nice intro. I'll take that all day. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. I love that you guys dug in and read it, and I love that you guys are fans of Comixology. That's awesome, because they're a great place that is just,
Absolutely.
I think, really, really encouraging artists to come out and just do their best work. So yeah, I'm just been pleased to work with them twice in a row here.
Yeah, no, they've been great, and they always allow creators to really kind of go some boundaries and really kind of test the fields of pushing the envelope, so to speak, with what is going on. And this story absolutely does it in all the right ways. So, how did this whole comic come to be?
Well, I'd had this idea in my head for a long time, and it actually started with an image. It was like a poster image I couldn't get out of my head. It was just this like Spartan warrior walking through a post-apocalyptic modern city. And I just thought that was just such a cool image. And and I think of ideas, I always think about, oh, am I going to, pitch this as a TV show, or am I going to do a movie, or am I going to write like a novel, because I'm writing novels now. But this one was like, this is a graphic novel, because the world is so visual, and the world that I had in my head for this, that I wouldn't let go of me, was just crying out to be drawn, to be, I wanted to see it beautifully on the page. And so when it came time to decide what to do with that idea, I thought, I'm going to talk to Jeff Bartolomeo over at Comixology and run this up the flagpole. And he was like, dude, I love it. It's really cool. And it's a super visual idea. And I think that subscribes really well to the medium and makes it a book rather than something else. So yeah, that's where it all started. Just started kind of with that image in my head, and then kind of backed into everything else.
So now that we know how it kind of came about, before we go any further, it's my favorite thing to do is let's hit them with the elevator pitch. What is Outer Lands about?
Well, there's two ways to go about it. I can give you a teasy elevator pitch, or we can kind of tip our hands to the spoiler of the twist. And I don't mind spoiling a little bit, because I think people need to know a little bit what this book is going to be. On the surface, it's what I call a sword and sandal sci-fi. Sort of creating my own little genre there.
Love it.
But in an essence, what it is it starts off in a ancient Greek city-state. And there's rumors in this world about Atlantis. And they say that it's this terrifying place. And there's fire-breathing chimera dragons that roam the ruins. And if you go there, the flesh will fall off your bones. And they used to put the heads of giants on their walls. And it's this horrifying place that no one would ever go to. And they forbid anybody from trying to venture to the outer lands, the outer island somewhere out there, where they might find Atlantis. At the same time, there's this budding black market trade for Atlantean wares that everybody in the kingdom seems to want. And our story is really about this prince and his sister, the princess, and what happens to them when their father is brutally murdered. We think that the prince is going to inherit the throne, but he is captured by the general and sent off to a prison island, and the throne is taken from him, and we see his sister now sitting on it. And we wonder, was that all contrived to get rid of her brother so that she could now rule? The big twist of our show really comes when we turn the corner from a historical epic into a science fiction, when our character finally finds his way to Atlantis. He finds it a fellow prisoner. They escape the island and they decide to go to Atlantis. And when they get there, they find post-apocalyptic New York City. And that's the big twist in the middle of this book. There's other twists along the way that I won't spoil. But to get you into it, I want you to know there's something exciting coming and that the book presents itself more than a historical epic. It's actually something much more complex and much more fun. And that's what I want you to be reading toward in the book, is this big twist and how it hits you.
Yeah, I agree. There was when reading the book, of course, obviously the cover of the book has, the helmet, the gun. So there's kind of tip of hand, and there's other tips of the hand going into like clues, especially with the Atlantean wares, if you will, when the one character gets captured. But I did like it. When you turn the corner, it's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, I'm reading this like old ancient Greek kind of thing. They're talking about Atlantis. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh no, Atlantis is, well, post-apocalyptic from what we have now. So you see the ruins of New York and you go, oh. So this is not taking place then. And then, like I said, with the other twists that come, you're like, oh, this is really, really, really cool. So I kind of like how it just, you're on one mission. And then when the reveal happens, the story takes a turn, and then there's a couple other turns that we won't ruin.
Right.
I guarantee when you get to the end of the book, you're just like, wow. Like the extra couple twists and turns, everything that happens, you're just like, okay, this is fantastic.
Oh, great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's the best thing about this, because as the first thing that jumped out to me is when you see the cover, you're like, okay, this looks very interesting. And then as you start diving in, and it really morphs very quickly into the different phases it goes through. When you're planning this out, I mean, how much did the original concept of this book change? Because, like I say, it goes in so many different directions from the time we get to point A and point B. Like, it just seems like there had to be so many ideas coming in just to narrow it down to get on the path that we get to when the book is, actually in our, possession here to see.
Well, I don't actually write like that. Like I generally just have like a million ideas floating around in my head, and I don't even start writing until I have the whole story in me.
Okay.
It's like it's kind of like just a mosaic, and I'm just pulling a lot of pieces together from different ideas, and then when it kind of clicks together and it forms its spine, I go, okay, now I've got the story, and I knew where it was going from the beginning, which is really fun when you're doing a story that's twisty. You really got to know where it's going to sort of back into it. To me, stories like this are all about like what your point of view is. The fun of a great twist is just that you, the audience, are a different point of view than you could be that would have revealed everything. It's sort of like the sun, right? Like ancient people thought it was moving around them because they were on the earth and they thought, well, the sun must move. But if you get away from it, you realize that, oh, wait a second, what's really happening is we're going around the sun. I think a great twist is kind of has that architecture. It's like once you jump back and see it, you realize, oh, I had this completely wrong. It was completely different from the beginning. And that's the fun of telling a good story like this and picking where I wanted to start. And I love a great historical epic. I mean, for me, it was fun to dabble in that world, but I love it when I'm reading something or I'm enjoying a piece of art and that part is done already well. It's already a good story, but then the rug gets pulled out and I see a completely different world than I thought I was seeing. I was like, look into something even bigger and grander than the story was presented at the surface. And for me, that's the most fun stuff that I like to enjoy as an audience member. And so it's a little bit natural that I would like to sort of do that in the stuff that I write. I love it when I can really surprise the audience.
Absolutely. So the book deals with many themes. I mean, we've kind of touched on sci-fi, fantasy, mythology, history. There's just a lot of stuff there. Which one for you would you say is the most challenging as a writer, when you're trying to present it, especially in the manner of a graphic novel?
You mean in terms of what's more difficult to present?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, themes should not hit you over the head. They should feel very subtle. I hate stuff that's didactic. I think theme comes to the surface just because of what the characters are doing or the world that they're inhabiting and what they believe without it seeming like we're trying to teach you something. This book is not to teach you any sort of a lesson, except that maybe, history is cyclical and to remind us that we are often destined to repeat the same mistakes, even against our own best human interests. Trying to create something perfect often falls apart and we have to start over again. And I think that's the thematic core that I was trying to reach at the story. And again, I don't think I hit it too much on the head. I think people will just kind of get the feeling of it when they read the book. Yeah, but for me, it's themes are difficult when you try to force them. When they come naturally to you, it's a lot better. And I think the theme has to reveal itself to you. I don't think you should start with a theme when you write. I think it should kind of come out as you're telling a great story.
Yeah, because I think the more organic it is, I think the audience can really pick up on that too. And that's where, you really form that connection with too. Because if it feels too forced, that's where you can have a little friction going, and the audience might not pick up on what you're really saying. But with this book, I think it really does, because even with all the twists that go on with it, there's still a lot of interpretation for the audience to really try deciphering what is really going on. And that's a great part of this book too, is all the hooks that come in with it. And especially like when you think about what you've done with television aspects in previous projects, for comics, it's a whole different landscape, so to speak. But what do you think is the biggest draw to you as a creator for doing comics and graphic novels?
Well, I think when you're writing television or even novels, you really all you have is the words. All you have is the written word, and there's a lot of satisfaction to that. You can do a lot with it, but especially in television, you don't get to dabble in where the camera's going to be, or the performance necessarily, or the lighting, or you can't say too much about the world. Like a great description of a house, I like to say in television, is a house.
Yeah.
Day. That's a perfectly legitimate description of a house. But when you're in comics, you get to have more of a directorial presentation, and I love that, because when I really want to create a world, and I get to collaborate with a great artist like David John Felice, who's just made such beautiful art for us, and his creative aspect on how he saw this world was such a wonderful collaboration. I think the best part of it for me is just getting that feeling and that moment of expectation of seeing what the image is going to be after I've given my descriptions, after I sort of programmed it into David. Watching what he spits out is like magic. It's really a lot of fun, and more satisfying a lot of ways than writing, because you're getting this striking visual image at the end of a week of work or something. So that's fun.
Absolutely. And staying with like complexity, there was a lot of like, not in a bad way, in a great way. There's a lot of complexity, especially in like the characters, and especially Prince Heron. And Prince Heron is a very complex character, without spoiling anything, because it's hard, because I know like there's a couple things I was going to add in under this question, but it would definitely blow the end of the book. And I think people need to read it for
Yes, they
themselves,
need to
because
read
it's
this.
amazing.
Yes.
But would you say when you were writing that character in particular, was it there's like a self-discovery aspect of the character? There's also a revenge character, part of the character. Like was it more of you? Did you picture him more as driven by revenge, or like discovering who he really was in self-discovery?
Well, I think that he was, when I write a character like that, I'm just trying to write him as honestly as I can from his point of view. His point of view. Like, how does he see himself? He sees himself as being robbed of something that was due to him, that was his birthright. And so there's a sense of needing justice. There's a sense of revenge, but there's more a sense of, I need to get back to what I deserve, and I shall find my way back to that. And I think that when you take it from that point of view, and that's irrespective of any twists and turns in his character that may devolve, that is where he's coming from as a character. And I think it's a very human way to go about something like that. And so that's what I try to do. I always try to think about, even, in a comic book or graphic novel format, I try to think about what is the most honest reaction for this character from his point of view, not from my point of view of like using him as a pawn to tell the story, but like, how does he feel about stuff? And I think that's a guiding principle that should kind of always lead you to the right place.
Yeah, I was gonna say, walking the thin line. When I was reading the book, like obviously going through it, it kind of almost seems like the hero's journey. But when you get to the end, is you kind of go, "Oh, that." So I agree with how you put it, because it is more of an entitlement. It's more like, "Oh, I'm the meant ruler. I want to rule." But when you're like, "Oh, it's just the hero's journey. This is it's like an epic. It's like the Iliad or the Odyssey. It's like we're going on this hero's journey." And then you get to the end, and you're like, "Oh, it's not quite the hero's journey," which I thought it's amazing. It just kind of hits you. Like when it hits you, you're just like, "Oh, okay, that's what we're doing here," and it's perfect. So I just wanted to throw that was a great answer without ruining anything. I know we're dancing in circles, but I promise you want to read this book.
You want to read
find
this,
out
yes.
how it ends, because it's amazing.
Yes, we're going to take you on some twists and turns here, because we don't want to spoil this, because that's how good this book is. That we want you to go check this out and read it, and then have your own interpretation, because there's so many great moments in this book and so many complex characters. I mean, Heron's just one. But as you're writing this, who was your favorite character to write in this story, and why?
Oh, that's interesting. You know, it's a little bit like asking me who's my favorite child.
Yeah.
But
Or should I say, who is the one that
but
surprised you the most?
you know, Isadora did because when I first conceived her, I didn't have the complexity at my fingertips, but I started to develop it when I started to write her. And once I kind of got her voice, and then I started to see that she could be very surprising. And that was fun to do. I think Selena, in a way,
Okay.
was an unexpected treasure. She'd sort of started off in my first conception as sort of a plot point for our hero, but now she's got like her own journey, and you can see that by the end of this book, if there's to be a sequel, like it's going to be her story. I mean, her story after this
Hmm.
is going to be pretty badass. You can see where that's going to go. And yeah, I discovered that a little bit about her, that like she was going to be a much more important character, and I just her sense of humor I think was fun to write, and just how she was kind of taking everything, and I thought, oh, that's she surprised me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, she was the character that was to me, it was like the adventurer, and it was really kind of nice because
Hmm.
like there's something pure about that. And I
Yeah.
agree. The Isadora character, I was kind of like the vibe I got early on in the reading of it was kind of like what watching the original Gladiator and
Yeah.
like watching how you know with the her in charge. You're like, oh, that's kind of the character, but then the character morphs. Like
Mhm.
that's the
Right,
best part about this book. You grow and you see all this different stuff, and you're like, that's fantastic. And you think you know who somebody is or what they're
Hmm.
doing, and then it just flips on you, and you're just like, this is great. Uh, let's move it over to kind of like the weaponry. There's a lot of weaponry in this writing. There's historical pieces, there's modern pieces.
right.
Without going too much into depth with that, was there ever an idea that you and David had to pull back on because of putting all of the elements in from, I'm going to say present and past into this?
Mhm. Right, right. Well, I don't think we pulled back. I think we went the other way. I think we went full in. And again, that's one of the great things about this medium is there's no budget on cool art. And what I got to do with him was just take the gloves off. Let's go all the way because there is a really fun mashup of these two different types of warriors. I remember there was an old Reddit article and it was sort of postulating whether like a Roman legion could beat like a modern day platoon. And there was military experts weighing in. And I remember this being kind of like a pop thing at the time. And then of course there's a whole TV show about it, like Ancient Warriors. Isn't there some kind of modern show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they
Yeah.
match
Something like
up
that.
to see who would fight who. I find that stuff fascinating because I think we often gloss over the past and we think of our ancient ancestors as being just kind of dopes. That's like we're so much smarter and cooler and more advanced than they are. They're dopes. But you go back and you look at tactics and the way that they fought their battles, and maybe they didn't have the technology, but they had every bit the genius. And I think that when you think about hand-to-hand combat and the way that those men had to fight in those battles back in those days and the heroism of it and the terror of it and the courage of it, I think they stand up pretty well to modern warriors. And I think that's what's fun to see is how those two ancient and past would clash and who could win and what would be the deciding factors. And we just decided to lean into that full on and have as much fun, as much visual fun and candy as you could possibly have. And even just talking about it, I mean, I think people at home could imagine just the fun of that, like the giddiness that you could have of mashing those two battles up. Those battle scenes, I think, are just so much fun in the book.
I was going to say from somebody who loves history, the visual, like the visual of just seeing like modern, if you will, troops in a like an ancient Greek setting in actual battling in it was actually kind of like a really cool like visual. Like you're just looking at it going, oh, that's how it would look if, modern troops were to storm the Pantheon. You know what I mean? Like when it was in its full specter, not like, ruins like it is now. We're talking like in the middle of the height of the Greek Empire. It was super cool. It kind of reminded me of the latest Indiana Jones movie, Dial of Destiny,
Okay.
where you have that last scene they fight in the past. And I like so seeing this in the book though, and all the stuff that you guys did with it was super cool. I really did dig it a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I say, there's so much to enjoy this, and David's art like is next level on this too. Like we can't stress that enough. Like the action sequences are just gonna absolutely blow everybody away, and then especially trying to tie in that historical aspect too, trying to retell that to a modern audience, if you will. Like, what do you think is like the biggest challenge of doing that? I mean, unless you're like your history buffs like Rich or myself that really love it, for somebody to come into it the first time, like what is the instant impact you want to make with that?
Well, I think authenticity is a big part of it. When we did the book, we studied a lot of, ancient art. I had pulled tons of reference samples for David and sent them to him. And, we played our fair share of AC Odyssey, and that was helpful. But like getting sort of a sense of making the world authentic and then tweaking it was the fun part. Like, where can we find the little tweaks? Where can we crack the veneer a little bit? But I think what you want from the audience is you want them to embrace the authenticity of the world at every aspect. You can feel that you're in the hands, I think, at least of an artist who really knows that what the world was supposed to look like back then. He's also Italian, so there's a little bit of a help, right? But there's ancient history, and you just want you want to feel as a viewer, as a reader rather, that you're walking through something real, and that this might be what it was really like before you can subvert anything. I think that's the key to doing something like that.
Yeah, I think that definitely shines too, because especially when the twist happens and you see the post-apocalyptic New York, like I think you're so invested in the past that when the present hits you, you're like, whoa, like what just happened? And I think that's just another element to that book. Like I said, just it's the perfect hook.
I was gonna say, I love the payoff of like one of the stories, the tales that they get people not to go to the Outer Lands is they used to hang the heads of giants on like buildings and stuff. And like when you end up in post-apocalyptic New York, you see billboards. And so it looks like the heads of giants are on the side of these buildings. And it's just like that was super clever. Like it's a good payoff. Like that's one of the first things that they notice. They're taken aback when they enter and they see these things, and then they start to realize that it's not what they thought it was. So it's kind of really interesting. And of course, the people from there think it's magic. And so which once again, if you were from ancient history and you saw a modern weapon, you would think it was magic.
Oh yeah,
it looked very much like magic. You wouldn't be able to explain it. So I thought that was genius. It was really cool.
Yeah. It's just such a storytelling, aspect to it. And you just, when you start walking through that as, coming from that time period to see present, it's just like, whoa, what is that? But it's just another element of this book too. Like I say, it does tie into a little bit of the sci-fi aspect of things too. And especially too, like for you, what do you think is a great, point for a sci-fi story? Like what is the major key point to hit with that?
With this one, like what did I want to hit with the sci-fi of this book?
Yes.
Or in general?
Or either or.
I don't know. That's hard to answer. I think what was great about this particular science fiction story is that it does not present as one, that it's the filling inside the cake. You know what I mean? You don't quite know it's there until you bite into it. And I found that to be very rewarding, because in a world where so much science fiction is, you got to show the spaceship at the beginning, or you got to show the monster so we know it's a monster thing. Like we got to set the table right at the beginning so that everybody's clear. I love a story that takes its time and unravels itself, unpeels itself, like opening a present and getting to the magic inside. And so for me, that was what was really fun about this kind of a sci-fi, is that I let it be something you discover rather than it's opens up as.
Definitely, and it was very successful in it, honestly.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Really good. I know we've said not spoiling a bunch of times because this is another book, but I promise this is the last.
Hey, listen, I love how careful you guys have been around that.
It's really hard. After I'm going to give a little sneak peek, and when we're done and when we're done and set up shop, I'm going to ask some questions off air, because obviously,
yes,
because we can talk about the ending. But I will say this without spoiling the ending or anything: if you were in the world, if you were there, whose side would you have chosen? Would you have been on Prince Heron's side or Princess Isadora's side?
Oh, wow. Well, you know what's cool about the book, and I'm going to dance around my answer just as much as you're
perfectly fine.
But, I think what's fun about the book is I don't take sides, so much. And there's a lot of interpretation about what happened that night. And I think that's what makes the book sort of fun, is that there's a little mystery in there. The inciting incident that launches the story is itself a mysterious event. So it's hard to answer that question without knowing what actually happened there. And I think that as a reader, you should be looking at both characters, asking yourself what you think about them, and trying to follow whoever you think is acting the most noble, even despite what may have happened.
Yeah, I agree. And with the king being so beloved, with his murder happening, I feel like no matter what, and when you said that you didn't pick a side, you could tell because it's basically the reaction of the people that Isadora, because she's there, because Heron is accused of the murder of his father, and he's he's sent off to prison because they don't like her rule because she's not exactly how the king was. They instantly, that like there's a big portion of the community. It's like, no, 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 no. You were behind it. Like it's almost like that's how the conspiracy theory is brought about. It's like we're revolting against you because we don't like you. We like your brother because your brother's like your father. And that's kind of like where you get the community coming in.
Mhm.
Of course, they have their own backers, but it's a lot of that. And so it is kind of genius in a way to not give a voice where it's like you don't know who's, the question's put out there, what happened that night? We don't get to see. We get to see the aftermath. We get to see that the new king is supposed to be crowned, and then all of a sudden he's in prison, or on a prison island, that is. And now we have the princess as the queen, essentially. And it's kind of this weird world. And even she's questioning a lot of things. So it's kind of like this crazy mix of things. And it's kind of like what would, in a lot of ways, what would happen in real life. The people would start instantly going, oh, no, 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 there's something more to this because we just don't like you. It's kind of weird.
In the quick description, I think even on the Comixology website, I talk about how this prince unravels a global conspiracy, which is a tip to like, it's not quite your typical historical, but the word conspiracy is a very specific one here. And you sort of were picking at it with your comment there, because it is a little bit like conspiracy theories. When things don't perfectly add up, and A doesn't lead to B to C to D perfectly, people will find an answer. They will put something in its place and they'll come up with something. And different people coming up with different things will have different theories. And that's what makes some of these things so fun. Like a horrible event like this, without knowledge, everybody's going to throw in their points of view and pick their sides. And that's what makes it a story that's kind of fun. That's what gets you, I think, as an audience member invested, because you don't exactly know what happened. So you got to pick a side and you fill in the blanks based on maybe your own expectations or your own readings of something or your own, oh, I think I know what happened. And then you get very attached to that idea. And it is kind of how conspiracy theories form in a way. And I think that's also kind of interesting and fun when you think about a story like this.
Yeah, it's absolutely another component to this book. Like I say, there's so many different avenues that this book will take you as a reader, and I think that's such a refreshing thing to see, because you really want to be challenged with what you're picking up these days. I think especially now with the creativity that's all over the place with comics, but you really want to have something that when you're investing your time in, it is one that is going to surprise you in all the best ways and also make you think too. And I think this book really nails it on every single level with that. And I know you teased a little bit about this in the beginning, but is there talks about coming back to this world at some point with you and David, or is that on the option? I guess we would say, like if a great story pops in with this.
That's I've been asked that already a couple of times. I have ideas where it could go. We haven't discussed a second book yet. I think we just need to kind of take a breath before coming back into the world and sort of see where it's going to go. But I'm certainly not done telling that story, if that's the question. The question is, when would I do it? Would I do something else first and come back to it? Is there another form that it takes? Do I pick it up in a novel, or does it end up in a show or something like that? All those things are on the table for telling more of the story. But yeah, you could tell by the way I ended it that I wanted to tell more. And I was saying to myself, man, I need another, 200 pages to tell everything I really want to say. This is a great ending, and it does end. It does move to its climactic end, but there is more things I want to tell. Not things that are unresolved, but rather things where it could go further. And I also want to pick up on something else you said, where you were saying about the reward for the audience. I don't know where this comes from in me, but I always feel like when I write something like this, I'm asking you as an audience, as a reader, as somebody that's spent money on a book, to invest your time and energy. And I don't want to disappoint you. It means a lot to me, just as a person, that I'm rewarding your time. I wouldn't feel good about it if you read something and it just sort of dribbled off and ended, and you felt like, like it's not the answer or reaction I want. When I started in this business, in the film and television business, when I really knew I wanted to do this, was walking out of Sixth Sense and seeing that, like, wow, that movie rewarded my investment.
Yeah.
And so much so that everybody that left that theater was talking about the movie. They weren't just going like, okay, what do you want to go for dinner? They were like, and remember that, and then because he didn't see her, like that she left at the dinner, and he did grab the check, but she didn't grab the check, and everybody's talking about it because you were fooled, but you were also invested, and you were surprised, and you felt like you were in good hands creatively, that the creative person at the helm of that movie walked you down a path, told you a great story, and gave you a reward at the end. And I always want everything I do, not everything I'm going to do is going to be Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty high bar for anyone to subscribe to or ascribe to. But I do like that in terms of art, and especially in a book when you're going to sit there and read for hours. I want you to be rewarded. And I appreciate you saying that, because I feel like that was like mission one for me. If I'm going to write a book, comic book or novel, I want there to be a reward at the end of it.
Yeah, and in this case, like especially because like the medium of like comics in particular, like it's weird because comic books is more of a short, we tell long stories, but they're in short little doses, like episodic television, right?
Yeah.
But a graphic novel is like the full feature length movie, and sometimes it's hard to keep somebody's like attention for the span of a graphic novel. And I think that the pacing was just, speaking of that reward, the pacing was so good. And then just when you thought you had everything figured out, it changes. But then once you think you have everything figured out, it changes again. And you're like, oh man, if any time I would have stopped and been like, oh,
Yeah.
this is pretty long or whatever, I would have never gotten that reward at the end. So once you get finished and you just sit there and you think about it, you're like, I like it. That's why when you said about doing something and there's been like tons of ideas, I'm like off the top of my head, I'm like, I can think of a million half ideas. Like just on the fact of it's like, so now they have these weapons in this, what was, a primitive world at this point. So what do they do next? What does this mean for them and their allies? What if New York's in ruins? What else is in ruins? Like, is there anything? And so there's like a million and a half things. So then it gets me, cooking it all up.
That's great.
But I
That's
want.
the
Oh, go
reaction I
ahead.
could get.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best reaction I could get. If you're already thinking about where you'd like to go next, I mean, I did my job. So thank you. That's a great compliment.
Absolutely. I want to have a fun question here. If you could, mind you, we're going to say licensing is not an issue. We're going to say that, there's no, you just get the green light. You can do whatever you want. If you could dabble in any comic book character at all throughout time, any one of them, who would you be? Who would you choose and why?
Any comic book character to like
To
adapt,
write,
like
to write, to create a whole
something?
arc, do a whole whatever, just you can
Wow,
create whatever you want. Open,
what a great question.
open world. It's like literally they said, hey, you can just do whatever you want. Who would you pick and why?
Man. Honestly, up until a little while ago, I probably would have said like the Alien franchise to get in and do a Ripley arc. But I just thought that the Alien Earth was so good. I was like, I really enjoyed it. I was like, it took the fire out of that one for me. I've got a Blade Runner idea I'd love to do. I've got a really cool Blade Runner idea that someday someone might hopefully let me dabble in. I'll be working on trying to get my claws into that franchise in some way. But yeah, I think there's some of those great like late 80s science fiction was just so evocative and dark and authentic and bizarre and neo-noir, and like those are just worlds that would be just so much fun to play in and dabble in and take your own arc inside like a multifaceted world like that.
Yeah, those are pretty interesting worlds. I will say I did dig Alien Earth. I think it's a really good story.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird. A little while ago, if you would have told me that both Predator and Alien were going to have like a kind of resurgence and like in a positive way, because it kind of got a little Harry Carey there for a while. But now with Alien Earth and of course with Prey and now the subsequent sequel to that coming out, it looks like they're really, really rebounding very, very well. So it's really cool to see and really cool ideas.
I like to see Star Wars do that. I feel like Star Wars has lost its way a little bit, and I love Star Wars from being a kid. I loved those old movies. But it feels like they need to do something really inventive. I'd like to see the next thing be really, really different, really flip it upside down, really find something wonderful and unique in the world to really get people reinvigorated on that franchise, because it's a great franchise too.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's been something that, we see the little, the Disney Plus shows and how they've really been trying to, get pop culture back into it. Because I think
Yeah.
with how the last three movies were, and I mean, they are quite polarizing to the fan base. I think just trying to remind everybody about how great those original, episodes 4, 5, and 6 were, and remind everybody about that magic. And yeah, to see them come back, we do need something like that to come back, I think.
I agree. I totally agree. And you were talking about Dial of Destiny. Like I thought that Indiana Jones lost its way with the Kingdom of Skulls, and I was like, oh no. But they brought it back. I'll give them a lot of credit. They really kind of brought that back. They found what was fun and cool about the Indiana Jones character. They didn't try to go to these goofy, implausible, silly, childlike ideas. They tried to come back to like and having, a de-aged Indiana Jones was just like pleasure for everyone, obviously. But it's great when a franchise finds that when they refine their pulse and they remember what was great and give the fans back what they want. I think that's fantastic. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's cross our fingers for Star Wars because I'm hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely need to see that.
Yes.
And then before we let you out of here, you did tease about some other novels and things that you have in the works. Is there anything that we could know about? I mean, not spoiling anything, but obviously if you got something in the works.
Well, there's a lot of stuff I can't really talk about because a lot of things are early on.
Okay.
But I've got a couple shows in development, and you'll be pleased to know that one show that's in development is Eden at Fox.
Ooh.
So we shall see. But yeah, Eden's being adapted for TV over at Fox, and Fox is a great place because they love stuff like this, and they're going to do it right. So I wrote a series for them. I got 2 scripts done, and we will see where we go with that. But fingers crossed on that one.
Yes, we were talking off air about if you haven't checked out Eden, go check out Eden. I think it was a very, very underrated story. Like I sat there and I was like, wow. Like the first time I read it, like that's how it kind of hit me. And it was one of my first early reviews that I ever got to do for Comixology. And like it still has stuck with me. So then obviously when I see Outer Lands and who's writing it, I, definitely marked out a little bit about it.
Yeah,
Had my little fanboy moment. I'm not gonna lie.
that's great.
But yes, I can't wait to see that show. Like, all right, I'm gonna need a minute to.
You have one to compose?
There's a lot more to tell too. When you read that book, obviously you could see there's a lot to
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And slowing that down for television and finding the spaces in between and really digging into the story is what's been so fun about adapting that. Really, all those beats, the flashbacks of the characters are really big stories, and what happens there on Eden, all the twists and turns, and all the chaos that can happen, all the middle of that story, which we kind of moved along pretty quick throughout in a little bit of a montage, where there's 3 seasons of that right there, So
Yeah.
there's a lot to unfold, and I think that's going to be really fun.
Oh, I can't wait for people to see that.
Well, people have to hit those liner notes. They have to get on the Kindle app these days for Comixology. You have to open up Comixology. Once you're there, and you have a world at your hands, you can read Eden. You can also read Outer Lands and see exactly what all the fuss is about, and to see exactly what we mean when there's we danced around a lot. That's why I say, but it's worth it because once you get to that ending and you see what happens, you're going to be like, oh, I'm glad nobody told me what was going to happen here.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's sometimes you're like, oh, we won't tell you that part. And the fact that you were willing and we were willing to all talk about the fact that it's not taking place in the time period you think it is means that the ending twist is even that much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So go make sure you check them out for sure.
Yeah, there's no way you want to pass on this book because you definitely get your money's worth if you really want to see an imaginative tale that takes you in many different directions, but yet lets you go and follow a journey, make your own choices about what is going on, but definitely gives you an ending that was going to leave the door open for much, much more down the road. And we want to see much, much more down the road. So everybody, wherever you're listening or watching this from, check the liner notes. Go get Outer Lands. The link is right there. Matthew, we can't say thank you enough for coming on the show. We definitely have to talk to you again down the road.
Oh, guys. Thank you. Beautiful. Really appreciate talking to you. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. And we'll end it like we always do on Turn a Page. Thank you for checking us out. And when you're at the comic shops and you have a great issue in your hand that's on your Kindle right now, but let's face it, as soon as it comes to print, you want to grab a copy. And you see somebody struggling to find something. Hand them a copy. Tell them to turn a page. We'll see you next time.
such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know. 'Cause anyone who's worth a damn be worth way more than a picture could ever show. You could find the right light, find the right angle, and never find your soul. And it can feel like a losing battle, and this plot is full of holes. This modern way of finding love just makes me feel so alone. And I can't be the only one sick of staring at my phone. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Don't know that I believe in the old time fable. Everyone has just one true love. All I know is you're across this table, and you're all I'm thinking of. So look up, talk to me, a better way to spend our energy. Just look up, talk to me. We don't have to float alone on the open sea. Ooh, ooh, talk to me. Ooh, talk to me. It's such waste of time, swiping left and swiping right on people you could know.